Even with the Constitution of the United States having merit, people attach themselves to it in a way that's boringly absurd. For example, someone who's anti-Trump would cite the Constitution with an attack on Trump as if they really support the nature behind the Constitution or the Bill of Rights. They would use buzzwords like unconstitutional to articulate or try to articulate themselves in description of someone that they don't politically agree with to an extreme extent. In theory, the Constitution has a lot of touchy things about it, but for me, it's the equivalent of an all-star athlete being heavily into doping, and even the atmosphere around it feels that way. Ignorant, naive, and hypocritical people are actually chilling with the audacity to cite Freedom for All parchment that was written by not-so-moral people in an attempt to demoralize or villain paint someone who they think isn't following the humane code of this nation's founding fathers. Just think about that for a bit. How is any leader of a regime unjust for not following the so-called written code of a certain collective, or a collective that can be considered unjust? A lot of these people just can't pick a road. How is anyone not a hypocrite for being anti the nature of the Founding Fathers, but at the same time pro the nature of the Founding Fathers when it's time to slander or criticize a president of the United States? I had a brief conversation with a stranger. She and I spoke about totalitarianism, fascism, Nazism, Trumpism, Clintonism, the Super Bowl being a metaphor for Trump's presidential win, and so on. These things are no-brainers for many of us, simple things to understand, I suppose, and yet there's quite a complex side, a difficult side, room for misinterpretation. These words mentioned and their respective natures are often misinterpreted. I don't feel like I live in a fascist country at the moment, and a lot of people do. Of course, my feelings don't always outweigh the feelings of many. Times are a bit different now. All the label of a fascist requires is a sturdy amount of people. These so-called end times are riddled with pseudo and honest unification. A big enough number can sort of change or hide the nature or true definition of a word. Go figure. I have not met or come across a protester who didn't have just a little bit of totalitarian within them. It's painfully obvious that becoming your enemy doesn't beat them.